Have you ever sat in silence, wondering why they didn't call, why they didn't show up when you needed them most, why they didn't see the effort you were putting in, the pain you were carrying, or the loyalty you gave so freely? It stings, doesn't it? That empty space where you expected love, respect, or even just basic acknowledgement. And the worst part is, you didn't ask for too much. You just thought they would care like you do. But here's the truth. The painful, liberating, soul-waking truth: nobody owes you anything. Let that sink in. No one is required to understand you. No one is obligated to support your dreams, to check in on you, to cheer you on. And the moment you stop expecting it, that's when you finally set yourself free. Because expectations are the beginning of disappointment. They trap you in a cycle where your peace depends on someone else's behavior. Think about how much power that gives away. You could be having a good day, feeling proud of yourself, and one unanswered message, one ignored gesture, one forgotten promise. Suddenly, everything crashes. Why? Because deep down, you were expecting something in return. That is how silently, how cruelly, expectations steal your joy. But what if you stopped? What if you let go of the hope that someone would come along and fix what's broken inside you? What if you decided today to be the person who claps for yourself? What if you stopped chasing people to prove your worth and started walking like you already know it? There is something powerful waiting for you at the end of this video. What? A mindset shift that could change how you see your pain, your relationships, and your future. If you stay with this until the end, you will no longer carry the weight of unmet expectations. You will walk lighter. You will breathe deeper. You will begin to experience something rare. Peace that doesn't depend on others. Because when you expect nothing from anyone, you stop handing out the remote control to your emotions. You start reclaiming it. You start healing. You stop being disappointed in people for not being who you imagined they'd be, and you start appreciating who they really are, or who they are not. And in that clarity, you gain strength. Real strength. The kind of strength that can't be broken by a text that never came, a compliment that was never said, or an apology that never arrived. You begin to realize that your value isn't hidden in someone else's recognition. It's not buried in their attention. It's right here in how you show up, in how you keep going, in how you stay kind in a world that often forgets to be kind back. You're not weak for wanting love, support, or loyalty, but you become unshakable when you stop needing it to feel whole. So sit with this. Really sit with it. Let it challenge the way you've been taught to depend on others emotionally. Let it break those silent rules you've lived by, the ones that told you to earn your worth through others. Because when you unlearn that, you unlock something rare, something most people never find. And that's what we're getting to. Keep listening. Keep breathing. Because what comes next will change the way you live. Every time you tie your happiness to someone else's response, you build a prison around your soul. You begin to believe that your mood, your worth, your identity must be confirmed by someone else's words or actions, and that's where the damage begins. Because people are unpredictable. They're flawed. They have their own scars, their own battles, and sometimes they simply don't know how to love you the way you expected. Not because you're unlovable, but because you were never supposed to depend on their love to feel complete. Human psychology teaches us something simple yet often ignored. The more we expect from others, the less we control our own peace. When we rely on others to make us feel valued, we put our inner world at risk. Why? Because people disappoint. Not always because they're cruel, often just because they're unaware. They didn't mean to hurt you. They didn't mean to leave you hanging. But they did. And it wasn't the act that broke you, it was the expectation. The silent belief that they would show up for you like you show up for them. That they would read your mind, know your heart, and treat it with care. Let this hit hard. Loyalty doesn't guarantee loyalty. Kindness doesn't guarantee kindness. And love doesn't always come back the way you send it out. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. That's freedom.
Because the sooner you understand this, the sooner you stop blaming yourself when others fail to meet the standard you quietly held for them. You don't become cold. You become clear. You don't stop giving. You start giving from a place of strength, not from a hunger to be seen.
This shift is powerful. It transforms the way you walk into rooms, the way you show up in relationships, the way you speak to yourself. You no longer bend just to be accepted. You no longer overextend just to avoid disappointment. You stop expecting someone to complete the parts of you that you're afraid to face. And in that process, you grow. You grow into the version of you that no longer needs permission to feel whole. Every time you've been let down, it wasn't just their action, it was your silent hope. And it's okay. And it's okay. You were human. You believed in people. That's not wrong. But what is wrong is staying stuck in that cycle. My own peace. I show up for myself. Imagine waking up and not needing that text to start your day right. Imagine doing your best without waiting for applause. Imagine giving your all and not resenting someone for not noticing. That's what happens when expectations die. Resentment fades. Anger disappears. You get your power back. It doesn't mean you isolate. It means you stop depending. It means every gesture you receive becomes a bonus, not a requirement. And that's when people start to respect you more. Not because you're demanding it, but because you stop needing it. Your energy changes. You're no longer begging to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. This is what emotional freedom looks like. It's not loud. It's not aggressive. It's quiet, confident, grounded. It says, I can give without expecting. I can love without needing. I can live without waiting. The moment you expect nothing, something incredible happens. You start to see life differently. You begin to appreciate the little things, not because you were waiting for them, but because they simply arrived. A kind word feels warmer. A friend's support feels deeper. A stranger's smile feels genuine. Why? Because your heart isn't weighed down by silent demands. It's free to receive without the burden of need. When your mind is no longer trapped in the cycle of you should have, you start living in the present. You're no longer mentally rehearsing the past, no longer replaying conversations that didn't go the way you hoped. You stop asking questions that have no answers. Why didn't they care? Why didn't they say something? Why didn't they show up? The truth is, it doesn't matter anymore. You're not chasing explanations. You're choosing elevation. Psychologically, expectations act like pressure points in the brain. The more you build them up, the more tension you create inside. And when the outcome doesn't match your inner story, your brain treats it like betrayal. It floods you with disappointment, stress, anger, even when no one promised anything in the first place. This is why people who expect less tend to be happier. Not because they accept less, but because they stop letting others control how they feel. When you stop expecting, you stop resenting. You no longer feel like someone owes you effort, love, or attention. And because of that, your energy changes. You stop radiating frustration. You stop giving off the vibe of lack. Instead, you become grounded, whole, secure. People feel it. They can sense when you're not chasing validation. And ironically, that's when they're drawn to you the most. You become a magnet, not because you need others, but because you don't. Your peace becomes attractive. Your silence becomes powerful. Your boundaries become respected. You stop being the person who begs for love in silence. You become the person who gives love without fear, without expectations, and without regret. This doesn't mean you become emotionless. It doesn't mean you shut down or stop caring. It means you finally realize that peace is not given. It's built, and it's built by letting go. Letting go of the fantasy that people will always be who you want them to be. Letting go of the illusion that others can complete what only you can build inside yourself. You stop needing closure. You stop needing people to explain why they couldn't be better. You stop needing the apology that never came. You stop needing the attention that was never consistent. You start focusing on the one person who never leaves your side, yourself. You start investing in your growth, your healing, your journey, not out of bitterness, not out of pride, but out of wisdom. Because you've lived through enough broken expectations to finally understand. Your happiness is your job. Your peace is your job. Your worth is not negotiable, not conditional, and not dependent on how others treat you. You give yourself the love you kept waiting for. You listen to your own voice. You keep your own promises. And in that process, you realize something life-changing. You never needed what you thought you did. People are not mind readers. They don't always know what you're hoping for, what you're silently needing, or what kind of weight you're carrying. And sometimes, even when they do, they're still not able to give you what you crave. Not because you're asking for too much, but because they're not capable. They're distracted by their own problems. They're battling storms you can't see. And often, they're still trying to learn how to show up for themselves. So how can they possibly show up for you? That realization hurts at first. You might feel alone, even abandoned. But it's not abandonment. It's a reality check. You've spent so long believing that someone else would rescue you from your darkness, lift you from your pain, or finally make you feel seen. But the truth is, no one's coming. That's not something to mourn. It's something to rise from. Because when no one is coming, it means you must come for yourself. This is where real transformation begins. Not in waiting, but in doing. Not in hoping, but in choosing. Choosing to be the one who shows up when it matters. Choosing to be your own shelter when the world grows cold. Choosing to be the steady voice in your head that says, keep going, even when no one else says it. That's not weakness. That's strength most people never reach. Because it requires full ownership of your life. No blaming. No excuses. Just a chin. When you start showing up for yourself, you begin to heal. You don't need someone else to pick up the pieces. You start picking them up one by one, patiently, intentionally. You become your own hero, not in some grand, dramatic moment, but in the small, quiet decisions you make every single day. To keep moving, to keep believing, to keep building a life you don't need to escape from. You stop begging for someone to understand you because you finally understand yourself. You stop trying to be chosen because you've already chosen you. You stop sacrificing your own well-being just to make others comfortable. You create your own comfort. You build your own peace. You protect your own energy. And slowly, something changes. You're no longer chasing relationships that drain you. You're no longer attaching your worth to people who barely see your value. You're no longer giving the best parts of yourself to those who only show up when it's convenient. You create distance, not out of hate, but out of healing. You're not cutting people off. You're cutting off expectations. You don't need perfect people. You need inner strength. You don't need more promises. You need discipline. You don't need to be saved. You need to remember who you are. Because when you stop relying on others to give you what you couldn't give yourself, you unlock a power that no one can take from you. You are not fragile. You're not waiting to be loved. You are learning to love yourself in the way you always deserved. And that kind of love, that kind of self-respect, it makes you dangerous. Because once you find it, you will never settle again. Let go of the illusion that if you give your best, others will automatically return it. Life doesn't always work that way. People won't always match your loyalty. They won't always appreciate your honesty. They won't always love you back, even if you poured everything into them. And if you keep expecting that they will, you're going to spend your life in a constant state of frustration, disappointment, and emotional exhaustion. The truth is, not everyone has your heart. Not everyone operates with your level of intention, with your level of care. Some people are still learning. Others simply aren't capable. And some are too caught up in themselves to even notice what you bring to the table. That's not your fault. That's not your fault. That's not your problem to fix. You weren't put on this earth to be everyone's answer. You were put here to be your own. Psychology shows us that the more we rely on external validation, the more anxious and unstable we feel when it doesn't come. It creates a psychological dependence. You start attaching your identity to how people respond to you. And every time they fall short, it chips away at your confidence. Until you forget who you were before you needed their approval. But something changes when you no longer need people to mirror your worth back to you. When you decide that your value is not something to be earned, it just is. It exists in you whether someone recognizes it or not. You stop waiting for someone to treat you right before you treat yourself right. You stop begging for support and start building your own support system. You stop hoping for someone to clap and you start becoming your own biggest fan. This mindset changes how you walk into rooms. You're no longer trying to impress. You're not seeking to be understood. You're simply showing up as you are, solid, focused, and whole. And because of that, your energy becomes undeniable. People feel the difference between someone who needs attention and someone who's grounded in self-respect. One repels, the other attracts. You learn to give freely, not because you're expecting something in return, but because that's who you are. Your kindness becomes an extension of your strength, not a strategy to be liked. Your love becomes limitless, not because others earned it, but because you no longer let their behavior define the kind of person you want to be. You take ownership. You take control. Fun, you take control. You stop asking, why didn't they treat me better? And start asking, why did I keep expecting it from them? That's the shift. That's the moment you reclaim your emotional power. Because when you finally stop waiting, you start living. you start living. You begin to notice how much beauty exists outside of the validation loop. How much peace there is when you stop needing everyone to respond the way you imagined. This is what it means to grow. Not to harden, not to shut down, but to rise, to elevate above the noise, to love with boundaries, to give with wisdom, and to live with a heart so full that no absence can empty it. So now, what do you do with all this? You stop waiting. You stop wishing. You stop putting your joy in someone else's pocket, hoping they'll hand it back when the time is right. You stop handing out pieces of your soul just to feel seen. Instead, you decide to become everything you've been looking for in others. You give yourself the love you kept begging for. You give yourself the approval you waited so long to receive. You give yourself the safety you thought someone else would bring. Because the truth is, you are not broken. You are just waking up. You don't need to be cold to be strong.
You don't need to build walls to protect yourself. You just need clarity. The clarity to know who you are. The clarity to understand what you deserve. And the strength to walk away from anything that threatens your peace. That's not selfish. That's survival. That's self-respect.
That's how you start living a life that's not built on hope, but on truth. When you walk through life without expectations, everything becomes lighter. Every moment feels like a gift. You stop feeling owed. You start feeling grateful. You're no longer offended by what people didn't say, what they didn't do, how they didn't show up, because you no longer needed them to. Freedom. That's real emotional maturity, the ability to stand in love, give your best, and still walk away with peace when it's not returned. You will start noticing the people who do show up, not out of obligation, but because they choose to. And their presence will feel even more meaningful, because you'll know you're not demanding their energy, you're attracting it. Not because you need it, but because your peace makes room only for what's real. That's the gift of letting go. That's the reward for expecting nothing. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your growth. You don't owe anyone your energy just because you used to give it. You are allowed to evolve. You're allowed to protect your heart. You're allowed to say, I gave enough, and now I'm done expecting. Not out of bitterness, but out of understanding. Understanding that some things will never be returned. And that's okay. You gave from love. That's all that matters. Today is the day you take your power back. Today is the day you stop waiting for an apology. You stop waiting for someone to finally value you. You stop waiting for the words you needed to hear years ago. You don't need them anymore. Because you're becoming the voice in your head that says, I'm proud of you. You're becoming the presence in your life that never leaves. You're becoming the love that stays. You are enough. Not when they say it. Not when they notice. Not when they return the favor. You're enough because you've decided you are. That is the standard now. That is your foundation. No more begging. No more waiting. No more expecting. Just becoming. Becoming everything you once thought someone else would be. And that changes everything.